You need
Smooth 98.1.
This is Frank Donna, and you're listening to Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
This is the number one newspaper review show on radio across the land, right here on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Freshly Pressed. That's right, it is 31 minutes past 7 a.m. on the 31st day in the month of July 2025. Yes, indeed, a special day. Don't want to reveal why yet, but it is a special day for me in particular, and for everyone as well, because it is a day to be alive, to be thankful, and to look forward to everything that we are going to get to this morning, talking about all the major stories in the papers, stories that have us talking, that have you and I wondering, hey, what is happening and where do we go from here? Welcome along to another interactive session. My name is Ayokunmi, and it's going to be the usual way we tend to do things. That is, we bring the stories, we get analysis, we get your thoughts and contributions as well. And once again, in case you did not know, we are fully back on the WhatsApp platform. I'll let you know the number in just a second. But joining me to take a look at the stories this morning and shake some tables if they need to be shaken. Gbubemi is in the studio this morning. Very good morning to you, Gbubemi. Great to have you in the studio.
good morning, Ayo, and happy birthday to you.
Yes, you just had to. You just had.
Let the cat
you just
out
had to
of
let
the
the cat out of
bag.
the bag. Yes, yes, it is my birthday today. That's why I said it's a special day for me and for everyone as well, because my light shines all across. So
Yes, sir.
yes, it's a celebratory sort of mood this morning in the studio. So if you want to do giveaways, you can do giveaways. That's all I have to say on the matter. But back to the WhatsApp number and the ways you can get across to us this morning. The number is 0911 999 That's 0911 It's a brand new number. So you need to toss the old one out and store this one. And you can always reach out to us on the Freshly Pressed and across every single show on Smooth 98.1. We're also on YouTube. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can leave your comments in the chat section there as well. All right, let's begin our journey this morning in the Vanguard. This is similar to a story that we talked about yesterday, talking about health. And Nigeria's health sector is set for another major crisis as both the Nigerian Medical Association and the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives, that's NANNM, have issued strike notices over long-standing grievances against the federal government, raising fears of a total collapse of public healthcare services. Now, the NMA has handed the federal government a 21-day ultimatum to meet its demands or face a total and indefinite nationwide strike by medical doctors and nurses under the aegis of the NANM. Now, they began a 7-day warning strike following the expiration of a 15-day ultimatum, shutting down nursing services in federal hospitals across the country. We are here again, and it doesn't seem to get any easier. I mean, looking at what's been happening recently, I know people who went to hospitals and they were more or less being told to take their people home, take their patients home. It was a ridiculous situation, and it looks like it's probably going to get worse because now we're talking about the umbrella association, the NMA, getting involved. They've issued a 21-day ultimatum. That's a 3-week ultimatum. If their demands are not met, it's going to be a total shutdown. Now, just think about the consequences of the entire medical system across the country being shut down, bearing in mind that it's already on more or less a half leg right now.
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure why we still keep having to discuss uh, these healthcare issues. It's like they've been on the news ever since independence. And it's embarrassing because it just shows that we are not prioritizing healthcare. Similar discussions about education and several other sectors. One begins to wonder which of the sectors it is that we're prioritizing. For a country that has, over 50 something thousand registered doctors, of which, probably a quarter of them have immigrated,
Mm.
to other countries, the doctor patient ratio is at an alarming proportion.
Yeah.
It's much, much worse than that recommended by the World Health Organization. We would at least try to keep the ones that we have. Doctors talk about all the time about, fresh doctors, graduating from medical school who finish housemanship and already their eyes are on leaving the country. So it's hard enough to retain existing doctors. It's even getting harder to retain new doctors.
Mm.
And we joke all the time about, one day we would have to resort to all going to visit native doctors for our healthcare. But we can't keep maintaining those kind of jokes. We shouldn't have to say that, government at all levels, federal, state, local government should prioritize healthcare. It should be something, that should be part and parcel of us. All the time we hear about, government officials who have to fly out of the country to go and seek healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
in other countries. That should never be the case. That should never be the case. There's enough potential to have standard hospitals delivering quality healthcare for all types of medical issues in this country. And if people can afford to travel abroad, they can afford to access that healthcare here and pay for it as well. Now, I don't think the issue necessarily is that there is no money, which is usually sort of where the argument comes from. I know there are issues border on remuneration, working conditions, and all of that. Largely, money will solve that problem. So when we talk about, solving this problem, people will typically come and say, oh, the federal government is probably not making enough money, state governments, blah, blah, blah. But if we check the FAC allocation for last year, it was about 1.8 trillion naira, which was an increase, from about 1.6 in May. So the states, the federal governments, the local governments, all are getting much more money, now. Where's that money going? No disrespect to the Super Falcons, federal governments, awarded each player $100,000 and their officials $50,000 plus a 3-bedroom flat each. Now, I'm sure that money was not in the budget, but they could find that money to award it to them. If it hasn't been awarded to them, hopefully the plan is that they will award it to them. So if
While
they
they're
can,
still alive.
exactly. So if that money can be found, to reward the Super Falcons for a great job well done, money can be found for the healthcare sector as well. We should not have the doctors threatening. We should not have the nurses threatening. What happens if there's not even a sit down to discuss these issues, or there's no proper plan as to how to address these issues, and then these officials, these doctors and nurses, go on complete strike? What happens? People that have critical healthcare issues, emergency healthcare issues. How do we address these things?
That is a very, very big question, because looking at what's been going on and looking at where we are now, I was asking myself the question: is it that those in charge of the affairs of the country do not understand the severity of this situation? Do they not understand the serious consequences of the entire medical structure getting shut down?
I think it's hard to understand if you don't access, healthcare. And for those who have the money, politicians, elected officials, appointed officials, many of them, can afford, whether personally or, the government pays, to seek healthcare
Mm.
abroad. So if that option is available to you, you're not even thinking about the state of healthcare here. But the reality is, if somebody has an accident, here, emergency health services would be required here first before you even think of flying anybody abroad. You understand? So
True.
at the very least, there should be some thought as to getting our healthcare system up to a minimum standard. I don't see that happening, because every year, repeatedly, we hear talks. If it's not the NMA, it's resident doctors, it's the nurses, it's the house officers, or there's always some sort of pending strike
Mm.
or
Discontent.
discontent in the healthcare sector. And like I said, it's not just the healthcare sector, it's other sectors as well. We hear these things all of the time. Where is the intention, the action, to be able to sort out or at least address these issues?
Mm.
Where's the plan to try and move these issues up so we gradually, keep having to hear less and less of these things?
Right, right. And before I drop this, one of the even more disturbing things is the fact that issues concerning the health sector didn't just start today or yesterday or 10 years ago. We've been hearing as far back as late 70s, the 80s, when the initial Japa wave began, and we had Nigerian doctors going to the Middle East, the Saudis, Kuwait, and so on and so forth. Today, we're still talking about the same exact issues. I don't even know if it's worse now than it was then, but they mirror each other. And that is very telling, really and truly. Let us know your thoughts on WhatsApp 0911 999 All right, let's go on to the next story here. We're going to be talking about the NNPC and petroleum matters. This will be like a double header, more or less. Now, first of all, we're staying in the vanguard. Now, the Senate has given the NNPCL, that's the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, 3 weeks to respond to queries raised against it in the audit reports of 2017 to 2023, alleging unaccountability of 210 trillion naira. Now, according to the Senate, the NNPCL will use the appearance to provide detailed explanations on financial discrepancies totaling 210 trillion naira, even as the group CEO, that's Engineer Bayo Ojulari, apologized for past field appearances before it pleaded for more time to respond adequately. Now, the questions about this are still being asked here. 210 trillion naira. Bayo Ojulari is asking for more time to get all his ducks in a row, to dot all the I's, to cross all the T's, in order to give the Senate committee a robust response, as it were. And I don't know, looking at what he's done so far, do we think anything is going to come out of this particular probe? I mean, we've talked about probes and audits where the NNPCL is concerned, NNPCL being one of the most opaque organizations anywhere in the world, not just Nigeria. Do we think anything is going to come out of this on one hand?
Well, I hope something good does come out of it. I remember when the board was reconstituted and the new GMD was appointed a little over 3 months ago. Generally across the nation, in the industry and all of that, it seemed like a welcome development because everybody, most of the comments that I saw were like, oh, a round peg in a round hole. So expectations are quite high that he will come and revamp the sector. Now, this audit covers periods for which he was not in office, and he pleaded for a month to be able to talk to the external auditors, look internally, to be able to understand exactly what the issues are. The Senate has said that 3 weeks is enough, and that's what they've granted him. The chairman of the committee, Senator Lee Wadada, said the amount is mind-boggling. The liability figure cannot be substantiated and is therefore not acceptable to this committee. Even the receivables making up the asset components cannot be verified. So the concerns revolve around 103 trillion naira in liabilities and 107 trillion naira in assets.
Right.
And one thing that the chairman of the committee also said, he insisted that the amount in question was neither stolen or missing, but yet to be accounted for. I think
What does that mean?
exactly. I think that's a premature statement. So you've called for an audit of these things. So you can't definitively say that the state of that the amount in question. So I don't believe that he should have come out to say that until he had seen, or at least seen, a report from the GMD. So like I said, expectations are high that that Bayo Ojulari will bring about a change to the NNPC. Forever, for as long as forever, like you said, you've considered it to be opaque. He has promised us that he will be as transparent as possible. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and hope something comes out of this. I just hope also that when he presents a report and he meets with the Senate, that the whole proceedings will be open to all, so that we can also find out exactly what it is.
Yes, indeed. I mean, looking at the figures, we're talking about trillions and trillions, and we're hearing amounts not sorry that they must be accounted for, which means that they are not accounted for. How are these when it's not 10,000 naira?
Exactly. So for a long time they didn't even publish their report, their accounts. So let's
Good
see.
goodness gracious. All right, this is Deja Vu from Aleki. Thank you very much for the warm wishes. He says, he's greeting you as well, Gbubemi. He said, okay, Mr. C is unavoidably absent this morning, but don't worry, you'll have him back on Monday, God willing. He says, if the NNPC fails to respond within the period stipulated, what will happen next? Now, that is a good question because we've seen, I think recently the Senate, lamented the in quotes disrespect
Mm.
that they've been shown by different bodies, MDAs, when it comes to them being summoned and so on and so forth. And that's a good question that Deja Vu is raising here. I mean, if at the end of the day NNPCL refuses to respond within that time, what's going to happen? What are they going to do?
Well, let's hope
You know?
Mr. Julari keeps to his word, because
Mm.
let's hope he's a man of integrity.
And then he further says, are their records manual? Don't they have audited financial statements? The nonsense never ends. Really and truly, it doesn't. It doesn't. Anyway, still talking about the NNPCL and Mr. Biojulari as well. We're now stepping into the punch where the NNPCL has confirmed its intention to raise additional funding to complete the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt Refining Company and the other two refineries it operates. The company also declared that the PHRC is not for sale. Now, within 2 decades, from 2002 to 2012, NNPC secured funding approval of over 16 trillion naira for the turnaround maintenance of the Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries. Now, it is also actively exploring advanced technical partnerships as part of a renewed strategy to accelerate the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery. Now, I know that I'm not that advanced in age, but I do recall that there were talks about the refineries not being viable, this one, that one, and so on and so forth. Not too long ago. Now
Yeah,
I hear something different.
yeah. So if you recall, was it last year or a bit into this year, they're given about 7 or 8 dates
Mm.
for when the Port Harcourt refinery
Would
would commence
yeah.
operations. And clearly it never did. So to find out now that they were, quote unquote, allegedly trying to start operations before the full maintenance and repairs had been done, is a bit quite surprising. So they've said now that it's not for sale. And when I saw that story, I just laughed to myself, because first thing that occurred to me is there even anyone willing to buy it? Is there anyone willing to buy it?
There's that.
The IOCs, the NOCs, are any of them willing to buy the refinery? So now they said they're seeking additional funding. It would be nice to know the funding they got already. How was that deployed?
Brilliant
How was that
question.
deployed? Where did that money go to? Because that funding was supposed to cover the full repairs, turnaround, maintenance, everything.
16 trillion naira.
Exactly. So where has that money gone to? And not a lick of oil or petroleum products, coming out of these things. People are collecting salaries, they're getting paid, and all of that. So maybe the Senate should also, add this into their audits or the audit discussions, because for me it's a bit quite worrying as well. So okay, they won't sell it. They say that they will repair it. Is it even in a repairable state? Are the equipment, will they be repaired or be replaced?
And then the
You
bigger
know,
question is talking about repairing or replacing. Where is the money for this supposed to come from?
exactly. So where are they seeking the funding from? And if they end up being successful in seeking that funding, we need to now start talking about repaying,
Mm.
and all of that. We know that the NNPC has already entered into crude oil backed arrangements with some other entities. So um, in terms of structuring the repayments and all of that, what exactly is the plan? Is this something that you push the debt forward into future years and all of that? For me anyway, the whole when it comes to the whole oil and gas industry with the NNPC at the top, there are a lot of questions. But like I said, Mr. Ojulari is the new sheriff in town, so maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt and see what comes out of this, you know.
Hmm. All right, let me take another message here. This is Ade in Lagos. Ade says, with the First Lady donating £1 billion to the victims in Yelwata, I want to ask, does the First Lady's office recognize, is the First Lady's office recognized in the Constitution? No, it's not. Which money is she donating? Is it hers or Nigeria's sweat? It's this is this not vote buying against 2027 elections because she has been donating money up and down? Peter Obi has been donating money as well. Would you say he's vote buying as well? Ade, I asked the question. Why doesn't this government deal with insecurity so that IDPs and people can go back to their homes to farm and take care of themselves, not this cash and carry approach of solving problems in which it will be relooted and not accounted for? It's a shame. The worst of us is ruling the best of us, and truly, there was a country. This is Tony Marine Beat says, we do not run independent systems to be expecting anything positive from the NNPC probe. Unfortunately so. This has been a sector badly, in quotes, badly run and presided over by successive presidents. We know how it works. The report must get to Aso Rock first before the said committee, who will be giving direct instructions concerning the report at the same time. It's a merry-go-round. Which way? Nigeria. We'll find our way. We'll find our way. Ajay Odonilua, thank you very much, my good sir. It's unfortunate that even with the renewed hope agenda of the president, our doctors and nurses are going on strike over their unpaid peanut allowances while government officials waste our scarce resources on overseas medical trips. It just keeps going round and round in a very, very unfortunate loop. Okay, let's step into the premium times real quick, where this one is interesting on multiple fronts. Now, the United States mission in Nigeria has drawn public attention and sparked controversy after it accused some Nigerian government officials of fiscal recklessness amid widespread economic hardship in the country. Now, in a post made on Tuesday on its official Facebook page under the hashtag Transparency Tuesday, the US mission in Nigeria criticized Nigerian leaders for what it described as poor prioritization of public funds. The post referenced a report by the Africa Report, which exposed how some governors are allegedly spending billions on new government buildings while asking citizens to endure austerity. It's interesting that this is coming from the United States mission. Now, this can be looked at in different ways. I mean, they do make a lot of valuable points, yes, but some would say, we see their business, can they mind their business? Why are they peddling and meddling into Nigerian affairs? But like I said, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here and look at the substance of what has been said. They aren't really far off the mark.
Yeah, so they haven't really told us anything that we didn't already know. But you know how it is when once upon a time we used to joke that, when was it during Buhari's time when he wanted to say something important, he'd go abroad and say it from abroad because it was probably more believable if we heard it's coming from abroad. So maybe that's what this is as well. Maybe we would believe it more when we hear it from foreign quarters. That's just a bit of sarcasm. Anyway, now so like I said, they haven't really told us anything that we didn't already know. And like I highlighted as well, there's a lot more money going around from the Federal Allocation Committee. Where's that money going? What are they doing with that money? And then we hear about various governments at various levels trying to borrow money for what it is that we do not know.
Mm.
We hear them. This report cited various governments building houses, official residences and things like that, or renovating residences. Even the federal government did that with the residence for the vice president. Again, it makes us wonder, what exactly are we prioritizing? Do we even know what our issues are? Are we ready to address the issues? And on the flip side, in a way, I will also hold us, the people, accountable as well. Because we should be asking questions, we should be putting pressure on the government at all levels. We should be holding them to account. It seems, and with all apologies to all Nigerians, I'm going to make what may sound like a sweeping statement, but it seems that largely all of us are concerned with what's in it for me? How do
Mm.
I get on?
Everyone's looking out for self.
Exactly. This government will favor me and my family. As long as it favors me and my family, we are good. But that attitude will not help us in any way at all. We have to gather together to be able to hold governments accountable, starting right from the local government. So in Lagos, for example, there was a local government election a few weeks ago.
Mm.
That gives us an opportunity to say, okay, you guys have come in now. You're getting a lot more money from the federal purse. Where's that money going? There are roads that need to be repaired, primary healthcare centers that need to be staffed, and equipped. You collect all sorts of tolls
And levies
and
and whatnot.
levies from market people and all of that. Where's that money going? What are you people doing with that money? Same for the state governments as well. So every time we hear, oh, they want to borrow money for this or they need money for that, we should ask them the one that you have in the first place. What have you done with it? Where is that money going? We need to get them to account for all of these monies. We have representatives that sit in House of Assemblies, at the Senate, at the House of Representatives. We need to be able to put pressure on these people to be able to hold governments accountable at all levels. We shouldn't have a situation where a foreign entity comes to tell us what it is that we already know. We should be able to act on it as a people.
Mm.
And there are people who have sort of, taking on this speaking for the people role.
Yeah.
Activists, civil society organizations, and all of that. We need to be able to support these people, even as they help us try to hold this government accountable. I'm not going to mention any names. We know many of these organizations.
Mm.
But we need to be able to support them even as they fight for us as well.
Right.
Because ultimately, if it gets to a point where it's every man for himself, God for us all, will we end up having a country?
That is a very, very big question. And you talked about reps and lawmakers and whatnot who only sits to stand on mandates as instead of doing what it is they are put there to actually do. A couple of comments here on YouTube. This is from the Lighthouse. I guess that's a pseudonym. It says, if any of us were employed as marketers in the bank that Mr. Ojulari was the MD and he gave us targets, do you think that give me more time would suffice as an excuse for not meeting those targets? Poor prioritization, a very subtle and diplomatic way of saying our leaders lack capacity to lead. He then says, we cannot continue to say it is us the followers. We as a people are inherently selfish. We do not have any culture of communal good. The only way to get what you want somehow seems to be by force. The wicked take it by force, as they say. Interesting. All right. Before we wrap it up this morning, let's quickly talk about this story concerning CNG. It's in the Punch, where it says that Nigeria's drive to deepen the adoption of a compressed natural gas as an alternative transport fuel has taken a further step, with the federal government attracting over $791.49 million in investments between May and June of 2025. It has also ramped up its push for compressed natural gas adoption in the transport sector, mobilizing over $980 million in investments and deploying more than 100,000 CNG kits within 12 months as part of the presidential CNG initiative. Now, of course, we know the CNG initiative was brought forth after the removal of fuel subsidy in order to cushion the effects of that. But it's about 2 years after or thereabouts, and a lot of questions are still being asked about that. A lot of people are talking about those who've converted their kits, talking about shortages in gas or not enough stations to refuel and all that. Now we're looking at these huge numbers that have that we're being told have been attracted in investments, but have we seen in real time the results of these said huge investments?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about. I live in Lagos. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't seen any CNG station. If I have, probably one or two. I can't readily recollect. I would have thought that Lagos would have been one of the prioritized states, considering the amount of people here, transportation issues and all of that. However, when I went to Abuja some months ago, I saw quite a considerable number of CNG stations. The bike sharing, cabs that I took, I must have taken maybe about 4 or 5. Probably about 3 of them were CNG cars.
Okay.
Because when they open the boot, you see the
cylinder
and all of that. So I'm not sure and maybe I need to read up on this as well, which states have been prioritized. Again, like I said, I would have thought Lagos would have been priority considering, our population. So I'm wondering, how is that money being spent? Before that, where is that money even coming from? Because, they've said that they've attracted this funding, but they haven't said where they've attracted it from. So it'd also be nice to know where that money has come from. It would be nice to know exactly where this money is being, deployed to
Right.
across the country. So they've also said, that they've sort of phased the states, where they're focusing on. It would be nice to also know what those states are. Like I said again, Lagos, actually probably one, maybe the NNPC I've heard Rewane Road, probably. I'm not quite sure.
AKA Kingsway.
Yeah, aside from that, I don't think I've seen any other one. One would have thought that by now, you find a lot more around.
Yeah.
Especially in places like around where the hubs or Oshodi or Balinde, CMS, those sort of places. You'd have thought that you'd find these things, but
Huge amounts attracted in investment. We need to see a whole lot more bang for our buck. We definitely need to see that. All right, let me take your messages as we wrap it up this morning. Deja Vu says, just imagine they still want to throw more money at refineries that simply are obsolete. Where are we with the PH and Worry refineries? Well, they said they are almost completed. They just need to raise some money to finish up the work there. Where are we with the $6 billion that was owed at some point? We've been asking that question. We haven't heard anything more about those monies that were owed to, is it the marketers or something? I can't remember clearly now, but there's some money that was being owed by the NNPCL. Is the DMO involved in this arrangement, seen as it touches revenue accruable to the country? We wonder and we watch. Oluwaseyi, thank you very much. He says, with the NNPCL, it's the more you look, the less you see. The NNPCL is a cartel and has been the cash cow of successive presidents. That's why they've mostly been the petroleum ministers. It is what it is. As for the reckless spendings of governors and other officials, of course, there has been an increase in FAC allocation from the federal government to the states. That's why they've been declaring for the president. What they're really doing with the money is, well, White Elephant projects and miscellaneous. I wonder what miscellaneous is. Benito says, the Nigerian dream is a fluff, meaning emptiness upon emptiness. Nigeria as a country exports what it doesn't have and imports what it already has. All right, thank you all for all the messages and the well wishes as well. Okay, this is Timmy Tokwakonde on YouTube says the ride-hailing cars use. Do you mean use CNG but charge like they use petrol? Is that what you mean? I'm guessing that's what you mean here. Lighthouse says there are CNG stations. You won't see the CNG sold here, but you might see a truck with 6 huge cylinders attached and parked in the environment. Mobile stations and NIPCO stations. Is it not then behooving on them to let it be known? Oh, there's a station here, because anyone who is driving around, the first thing you look out for is the signboard or the signpost of, oh, this is a fuel station. You would have seen it from a distance. Oh, I can buy petrol here. I mean, all the petrol stations, they have them outside. So for the CNG component, it should also be clearly shown if that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, no one would know. I mean, it's something that is less popular. So for you to pass the information across for people to know, you need to put it in their faces. So for someone driving down and passes a fuel station and sees, oh, CNG refuel here or something like that in clear print.
It needs to be clear marked.
It needs to be clearly marked. That's just the truth of the matter. But thank you for the message, and thank you for all the messages and the interactions this morning on Freshly Pressed. It's been a pleasure interacting with you on the show, and big thank you to you, Gbubemi, for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
Alrighty, the Smooth Breakfast is in full swing. 8:15, we'll get into the world of entertainment and a lot of gist as well in the grapevine.
Headlines, the stories, the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1.